This is quite possibly the rarest Mk8 Golf. Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Now, a few weeks ago, the new facelifted Mk8 Golf, also known as the Mk8.5, began production in Wolfsburg. So I felt it was a good time to make a farewell video saying Auf Wiedersehen to the original Mk8 Golf, because this is a car that has meant an awful lot to me. Firstly, it was the first all-new Golf to be launched since I started this channel, and also I spent over a year in my Mk8 Golf GTI Clubsport, driving it in the manner for which it was designed. So in today's video, I'm going to review what is the very last non-GTI Golf Mk8 on VW UK's press fleet. And this will actually be this car's last review, because after I'm done with it, it will be auctioned off and end up at a main dealer somewhere in the UK. And I'd say this is the main dealer you might want to track down, because this is quite possibly the rarest Mk8 Golf there will ever be. I'm going to explain that bold claim. We're going to have a look around the outside, the inside, even the underside, and of course we're going to go for a drive. But before we get started, I'd just like to remind you guys how you can support the channel. The easiest way to do that is simply to subscribe. If you like what you see, then I'm sure you know what to do by now. Another way you can support the channel that could also benefit you is to give you the opportunity to buy your performance Volkswagen Group car from the last 5 years. I'm currently looking for cars with a full service history, completely unmodified, in good condition, and with average mileage or below. So if you've got anything like that, then get in touch with me directly by email, andrew@volkswizard.co.uk. Okay, before we have a look at this car's on-paper statistics, let me just explain to you which model we have here. So we have a 2024 model year Golf Black Edition 2-litre TSI 4motion DSG. Now, the Black Edition joined the range in September 2023, and it has a lot in common with the R-Line, as you will see. What's different is the drivetrains. Firstly, with R-Line, you could have petrol or diesel. With the Black Edition, it's only petrol. Both versions will have a 1.5 TSI, but only the Black Edition gets the one we have here, which is the EA888 engine and all-wheel drive. Does that sound familiar? Sprinkled with a few R badges. Yeah, it's more like an R-Lite than an R-Line. It's so similar on paper. It even weighs pretty much the same as a Mk8 Golf R. 1,515 kilograms is its unladen weight. I guess the difference is the power. We only have 190 horsepower here. Golf R has 320, so it's not as keen a revver as the R, but actually the torque figure does compensate to some degree. So we might have well under a third of the R's power, but we have well over 3/4 of its torque, so 320 newton meters here versus 420 for the R. 0 to 62 time 6.7 seconds. That's not bad. That's GTI territory, but some of that will be because of the all-wheel drive system. Economy isn't too bad. It will do 38.9 on the WLTP combined cycle, and I've had this car for the best part of a week now. I see over 40 on a regular basis. That sounds good, but actually an R and a GTI Clubsport and normal GTI would be in roughly the same ballpark. Price-wise, well, this is probably the sticking point. It's not a cheap car. Base price for this version is £36,700. And as spec, this car is £38,445, because we've got dynamic chassis control for £875, keyless entry for £445, and Moonstone Grey for £435. So that makes it just a few quid short of what the Golf R's base price was when it was launched back in 2020. The big problem, though, is that these cars have now gone out of production. They're only available from stock, and actually there were never that many sold in the first place. I think a lot of dealers have got demonstrators that are for sale, and they are a bit cheaper than this when they are ex-demonstrators, but not an awful lot. Anyway, now let's have a look around this very rare Mk8 Golf. Okay, as usual, let's start off then with the outside of this Golf Black Edition, which, as you can probably tell, looks very much like an R-Line, which is weird because R-Line doesn't actually feature in its name. It's not like it's Golf R-Line Black Edition. So I think we need to start off then by looking at the bits that are specific to this Black Edition, and the most obvious one, is the wheels. So here we have Bergamo black 18-inch by 8-inch wheels, 225/40 18 tyres. In this case, Bridgestone Potenza S005, which is a really high performance tyre. So they've decided to go for an ultra high performance tyre rather than a touring tyre, which is very interesting. And I think this might be key to the way this car drives, but we'll talk about that when we go for a drive. We've got black mirror casings. Apparently the tinted back windows are standard R-line. Apparently they're 65% tint. I say apparently because you can't completely trust the spec sheets on these cars. At the back, probably the most important thing for me is that those fake exhaust tips of the normal R-line, they're still there, but now they are black. So, well, you can't see them as much, which has to be a good thing. And that, I'm afraid, is it. But what's very important, and big ups to whoever spec'd this car at Volkswagen UK, I've never been a fan of Moonstone Grey until I saw this car on a GTI with all the red bits and the silver bits. It's a bit messy. With this car, with the black highlights, it really works with this colour. So actually I quite like it, even though it does look like grey primer. It's £445. If you want colour on top, it's a little bit more expensive. Okay, now back to the normal bits of this car. It does a very good job of copying the R, doesn't it, really? And to top it all off, you get a better range of colours. I bet there are loads of people who drive Golf Rs that would rather have them in Moonstone than the black, white or blue that they've got now. So gone is the R-line badging, it's just purely R. The front bumper isn't as aggressive, but it's still pretty aggressive. Headlights are a step down though. We've just got LED plus headlights instead of IQ lights. So they're just a normal LED rather than matrix, but they still have auto main beam, but that turns off all the main beam rather than just a bit of it, which is what you get with LED matrix headlights. Unlike the facelift, we have got the radar hidden behind here. And to be honest, the facelift doesn't look that different from the front. The really easy way to notice them is that they've got the radar just like a Mark 7. Or a later Mark 7, not the round one of an early Mark 7. Quick look at the brakes, nothing special really. Probably, I think, 312mm, much like you'd get on a 245 Golf GTI. We've got the R dagger badges, which we're going to have to say farewell to because from now on the R-Line will have the R logo on the door, all because of the GTE hybrid and its charging flap, which takes up this position. Thank you, Volkswagen. Okay, at the back, the lights aren't terrible. They're quite interesting. They're called LED combination lights, but they're not as trick as the IQ lights that you get slightly further up in the range. It's got a pretty decent tailgate spoiler. This is the weirdest thing though, a 4motion badge. Now it's weird because you don't get it on the Golf R, so even though it's got four-wheel drive, you never see the badging. And also, I don't think there's been a normal Golf with four-wheel drive that's not been an R model in the UK since the Mark 5, when they did a 2-litre TDI and a 2-litre petrol version. Because the 4motion part of this car is so key to its character and actually so unusual on a Golf, especially one that's not an R, I thought we'd get it up in the air and have a look underneath it. And what I wanted to make sure was that this isn't the new Magna torque vectoring rear diff that we've got with the Mk8 Golf R. And looking at it, it looks to me like the Haldex system, which would have been used in cars like the T-Roc R even to the present day. They never made it to never got the Magna torque vectoring system. So there it is. We've got a prop shaft runs to the front of the car there, and then we've got these drive shafts here. And there's the Haldex pump, which is a bit bigger than on earlier generations, and looks like they moved the ECU away from here where it was prone to corrosion to somewhere a little bit less filthy. There we go. 4motion on a non-R Mk8 Golf. Okay, let's now make use of this car's optional keyless entry and have a look inside, starting with the door card. Now, somebody who ran a Mk8 Clubsport for over a year that didn't have Alcantara in the door cards. I'm always really impressed when I do see it. And it's strange because this car is lower down the range. I think the later 2023 model year car did get it in the end. But yeah, this looks really nice. We've got some fake carbon, which doesn't look too offensive. Nice padding there. Bit hard there, but that's okay. Plastic quality is good. This is good. Slot lined door bins as well. Only thing sort of lacking is that we don't have electric folding mirrors, which you kind of take for granted these days. Also, we don't have the side assist warning light on the mirror casing, so it hasn't got that. But we do have chrome tips, so it's not all bad. Down here, we don't have any protection on the sill. There's no branding down here. No ambient lighting either. I should mention that there will be ambient lighting in there. It's too bright today to show you. In the footwell, well, we've got the usual terrible Volkswagen carpet that at 3,000 miles isn't looking too clever. Do have stainless pedals though, although plastic dead pedal for the right-hand drive market. Standard floor mats with a little bit of a flurry of contrast stitching there. They're not as good as ones in the Golf are, but the fabric quality is pretty good. Now onto the seat. So we've got these pseudo bucket seats that have been in a lot of Mark 8s from our line upwards, including GTD, I think GTE as well. And in this car, they lack the blue flashes that you get on the Golf R, but I think as a result of that, they look probably more expensive. Nice embroidered stitch of the R logo there, and they're super comfy. All the adjustment is manual, and we do have lumbar adjustment as well. You can see it come in and out there. It's plain black seat belts, black headliner for the sporty look. Let's just get inside and have a closer look at the cockpit. So the carbon inlays extend right across from one end to the other of the dash. You can actually just about make out the ambient lighting in there. We've got the haptic steering wheel, which is a dead man walking right now because this has been deleted from Volkswagens because they tried to save money, but then they didn't sell cars, which cost them money. So we've got the traditional one coming with the facelift, but this is okay when you get used to it. It's not terrible. Nice R logo there, but we don't have the R button on the steering wheel because it's not an R, so you have to change modes via the button down here. And we don't have the blue stitching of the R as well, but this is kind of like an R interior without the blue. Look at that. Okay, we've got some blue. So 10-inch active info display, digital instrument cluster, which you can change to your heart's content. We've got the 10-inch infotainment system or Discover navigation system with wireless Apple CarPlay, which is working really well now, as you can see. You can also plug it in as well if you wish, but it's worked really well for me. We've got wireless charging down here, which doesn't work for me because I've got a case on my phone with a mega mount on the back of it. So I haven't really been able to test that, but with my old car, it wasn't very reliable. And they started incorporating a fan into this area to keep your phone cool, which we will get with the facelift. The infamous sliders that aren't illuminated. Standard heated seats on this car, which again improved with the facelift because you don't have to press that and then press again to change the temperature. You can just do it all in one press on the main screen because there's just so much more room to get stuff on there. Just have a quick look at the glove box, which isn't lined, which is a bit of a shame. No flop lining there. This, though, is a lovely bit of plastic. The dash moulding. These A-pillar trims are plastic, which you could say is a downgrade from Golf 7.5, but they look actually okay. Don't know if they've improved them. As you can see, this is fabric, the headliner. It doesn't look that different to that. Obviously, this whole area looks a lot better if you have the Harman Kardon sound system. We've got a plastic rim around the mirror, which is fine. Some people like the frameless one, but I don't really mind. No sunglasses holder here, just a big SOS button there, which is, I didn't realise this, but became UK law in about 2019 that you have to have a car that will call the emergency services in the event of an accident. Down here, we have the new stubby shifter, new with Golf 8, as seen on Porsches before this, which works really well. They've shifted it over to the stalk, the right-hand stalk on Passat and Tiguan. I don't think they're going to do that with the Golf facelift, which is probably no bad thing because the shifter's still down here. We've got the electric parking brake, which works really well with standard auto hold. And this car's keyless entry, but all Golf 8s are keyless starts. And that's what that button is for there. Centre armrest can go up and down and back and forth, and there's a nice bit of a pad in there to stop stuff rattling around. We have, if I start the engine, a standard parking camera, which is pretty cool. But in the facelift, we can get the bird's eye view system that we've seen on bigger cars like Tiguan and Passat. Paddles, these are the small ones, but they're okay. They're not the R ones, but you can fit those if you wish. Okay, so what have they done to the door card in the back? Well, there's no carbon here. We do have the Alcantara. This is pretty well padded, but it looks a little bit more basic, doesn't it? And this isn't padded at all, but it's okay. I should mention this car has got the one zone climate control, so if you're used to GTIs and above, I'm not sure all about GTDs or GTEs, you're used to having 2 zones at the front and a 3rd zone at the back. As you can see here, there aren't any temperature settings here, and these are a little bit cheapened off as well, but they still feel okay. So yeah, that's probably not in my driving position, to be perfectly honest. I think you probably know that the Golf seats 5 adults reasonably comfortably, 4 will be comfortable, and the backs of these seats are really soft as well, so even if you've got long legs, it's not that bad. But obviously if you want more space in the back, go and buy a bigger car. Okay, now let's have a look in the boot. Opened with the Volkswagen Roundel, the camera's just under there. And we have 371 litres with the seats up and 1,237 with the seats down. Note that it's a 60-40 split, so we haven't got 40-20-40, just got 60-40. There's no spare wheels, so there's more storage down there. And this is the tyre repair kit with a pump and foam in there. There's a 12-volt socket there. Yeah. And this bit always bugs me on Golf 8 because it's for a warning triangle, but you don't get one. It looks like somebody's left something off your car. So if you've got one of these and this looks ugly, just go and buy a warning triangle that's designed to fit. It's pretty standard size. They're not expensive. And finally, let's have a quick look under the bonnet, because like the underside, what's in the engine bay is quite important to this particular car's character. Now I'm going to try and avoid saying the cliche. Here we have the familiar EA888, because in an R-Line, an EA888 is most definitely not familiar, and it's not familiar to see one with an engine cover, because over 2 years ago there was a recall where Volkswagen said the engine covers had to be removed because there was the risk of them catching fire on EA888 engines. So either this has been redesigned and now doesn't catch fire, or this 190 derivative doesn't get hot enough to set it on fire. Either way, it's still pretty boring, but I'm pretty sure they were a bit squidgier before. This is harder plastic. Whatever, it's definitely an EA888, as I will show you now. There we go. So if you pull the cover off for Golf R with its 320 horsepower engine, it will look to all intents and purposes like this. The engine code's not the same though. Here we have the DNN engine for the nerds out there. Unfortunately, I'm not nerdy enough to know whether this is just a 245 horsepower Golf GTI engine that has been detuned, but I'm pretty sure a remap will unlock some of this car's performance, so it's not too bad as it is, as I'll demonstrate when we go for a drive. Now, seeing as this is the last review of a new Mark 8, it's probably a good time to set the record straight when it comes to this bonnet stay. I've said this before in videos. I think there was a myth video about Mark 8s. A lot of people have said this is because Volkswagen wanted to save money, and there are elements of this car where I'm sure they have, but the key difference between this and the Mark 7 7.5 is that we've got 2 locks and 2 latches. And when I was really bored during lockdown, I contacted Volkswagen, asked for the prices of these 2 locks, 2 latches, and this manual stay, compared them to 1 lock, 1 latch, and a telescopic stay on a 7 7.5, and it was either really close or this cost more. I can't remember, but there wasn't a lot in it. Volkswagen are definitely not saving money by fitting these, and in some markets they actually have a telescopic strut. So I think it's something to do with European crash protection, where having this under the bonnet is better for somebody who lands on top of it than having a thicker telescopic bonnet strut. But then we have cost saving here for definite, because this is Probably not so important on this car, which is painted in grey primer, but this is the base coat with no colour on it, and it's like this on red cars where it looks markedly different. So there definitely are elements where money has been saved, but this, guys, is not one of them. And actually, we've got a nice battery made in Germany. There were some Korean or some Far Eastern batteries that made it into 7.5s that didn't last very long. So yeah, definitely a good quality battery there. Right, now it's time to go for a drive, and whilst this car on paper doesn't seem that surprising, it's just effectively a tarted up R-line, the engine and the drivetrain make a big difference, as I will demonstrate now. Well, I thought we'd do the driving part of this test on a road I haven't driven on for quite a long time. I used to live in a place called Prize Marston, which is in Warwickshire on the Northamptonshire borders, and there were some really good roads on your doorstep there, but they're quite rural. They can be quite muddy and dangerous in the winter. And I was doing the commute in my Mk8 Golf GTI Clubsport, and it was fantastic. But I didn't come into Northamptonshire where the roads are much worse in that car. Luckily I didn't, because it would have been too hard on its passive uprated Clubsport suspension. So I thought we'd start this drive in Northamptonshire on a really rutted country road. We're in individual mode with everything in sport apart from the dampers, which are set in comfort. And I just want to demonstrate this car's remarkable compliance and its neutral handling. So normally I'd be dodging all these holes in the road in any car, even an up GTI, particularly an up GTI, which can bottom out a lot. In this car, it just glides over this pockmarked road. It's remarkable. And it's got this lovely neutrality. You can feel the rear axle lean in with you into corners. Nothing to do with the four-wheel drive system. It's all to do with the hours the engineers have spent setting up this chassis. It's got to be one of the best applications of DCC I've ever experienced, because inherently this is a compliant car. It's not got the stiff bushes of a GTI or an R, so the DCC can do more. It's got softer springs as well. The spring rates in the GTIs and the R are quite high. The dampers can only influence the ride so much. A black edition Mk8 is rare. A 2-litre TSI is rarer. How many are going to be a 2-litre TSI with DCC? I feel like I'm reviewing this car for one person only, because it's probably a one-of-one car. It's going to appear at a main dealership in a few weeks. It's actually a really nice and tidy, unabused press car. This it's going to be just over 3,000 miles when it goes back. So keep a look out for this. It will appear at a main dealership somewhere. And if I had a need for this kind of car, which I don't right now, I'd be snapping it up. Okay, now we're going to cross over the border into Warwickshire, just over this little hump now. That's it. And here the roads are a lot better. So we just go straight into full fat sport. There's no fake noise, and that's fine, because the EA888 sounds great. We've got 7-speed DSG, which as ever is brilliant. Punchy when you want it to be and slushy when you're not in the mood. The brakes are actually really nice. They're not over servoed like a lot of modern cars, and they just brake more the harder you press them, which sounds obvious, but not many cars do that. Look at this, look at this, look at this. Tyres will be partly to do with this. We've got Bridgestone Potenza S005s, which I've experienced on my S4, and they are really good. I'd say they're probably not as stiff a sidewall as Goodyear Eagle F1 Supersports, but my God, they don't half suit this car. So let's talk about the performance then. So 190 horsepower. Doesn't sound a lot, does it? 320 newton meters of torque. Sounds better. It's actually got a better torque to weight ratio than an up GTI. I know it's a different kind of car to an up GTI, but it's sort of like a modest performance car benchmark, and I think it knocks that car for 6. 0 to 60 time gives you a clue. We're in the 6s, the up GTI is in the 8s. Some of that is to do with the four-wheel drive system, but this car's a lot quicker. Part of that will be to do with the shorter gears, thanks to the 7-speed DSG as well. But overall, it's a much better resolved car. It does cost over twice as much. Actually, today's price, it actually is twice as much of the non-GTI. Is it twice as much car? It's definitely a lot more car. Okay, I'm just going to demonstrate the four-wheel drive system. So we're going to pull off from a sort of dusty, gravelly driveway, and it's a tricky junction where we need to go quite quickly, so we have to floor it. And you're off, very little drama. Now, I want to demonstrate another facet of DCC that I first experienced in the Mk8 Golf GTI Clubsport the Volkswagen press office loaned me back in the summer of 2021. I think I was driving my passive damper non-DCC Mk8 Clubsport then, and I took a friend out on a road with some sweeping bends in it, and we could both feel that the car did something that my passive damper car didn't do. It just felt amazing in these sweeping corners. It's really hard to explain, and it won't do it on anything other than sweeping corners. In fact, it seems to be left-hand corners where either it doesn't do it on, it only does it on left-hand corners, or I've only got the confidence on left-hand corners because you've got a bit more room to work with. Turn it in, hold it in, and it just feels bloody credible. Almost like it springs itself round the corner. The dampers, maybe they're weighing up and they're pushing back against you, and it's just an unbelievable sensation. Unbelievable. Only on DCC. Clearly it doesn't need to be a GTI or an R to do that. This humble black edition does it, and it is amazing. And the speed you can carry through corners is just brilliant. I'd love to get a DCC car out on track. By the way, this is in sport mode, of course. Okay, I just want to demonstrate launch control because this is a four-wheel drive car after all. So we've got ESC in sport, we're in sport mode. That's all we need. There's nobody around, front or back. And foot on the brake, throttle down, launch program active. It doesn't exactly fly away from a start like an R does because it kind of bogs down. There's so much grip from the Bridgestones and from the four-wheel drive, it just can't really launch it that well. So yeah, it's got launch control, but I wouldn't really use it if I were you. And actually, you don't need it. This is without launch control. Yeah, I'd say that's actually quicker. How weird is that? It's quicker not using launch control. Well, it's great to end the Mark 8.0 era on a high because this black edition 2-litre TSI 4motion, it's not just the best Mk8 Golf I've ever driven, it's actually the best Golf I've ever driven, and that includes my Mark 7 Golf GTI Clubsport S. Now obviously there need to be some caveats with that statement. I'm talking about driving on the road, and specifically the rubbish roads that we have in the UK, where the black edition is all the better for not having been set up to set a lap time. It really is an incredible package with dynamic chassis control. Of course, I'm looking forward to the facelift coming, but maybe not for the reasons you think, because I don't think they can make these cars drive any better than they do now. Yes, well, we're going to get a better infotainment system, but the main reason I'm looking forward to the facelift is because it's actually going to finally cause Mark 8 values to depreciate. They've been pretty solid since launch, mainly due to the lack of supply, but that's all going to change with the facelift. And the thought of a £20,000 Mk8 Golf GTI Clubsport is a very nice one, I've got to say. And yes, I put up with a crappy infotainment system for that, for sure. As ever, guys, thank you for watching this Volks Wizard video. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and I'll see you for the next one very soon.